this lesson, a lot you get out of this. This is why you have fire code. This is why workplaces are safer. This is also why workers come together because they're looking for safer working conditions. And
should we grab the camera and go on a tour?
Oh my gosh, I wish we could.
I know. I mean, you're missing that. Like, this is one of our favorite lessons
because we usually just go around the school, and there's a lot of things that you probably take for granted that are in place. I know. I have my degree in fire protection, so I love this because this was actually one of my projects. But when you look at, for example, something as simple as a school, and you're looking at any particular structure, a structure is built, most public ones, I should say all public ones, they have to conform to fire code. So if you look at certain things like our school, you have brick, you have steel, you don't have wood. Why? Wood's going to go up that quick.
What about the door, Mr. He? That's made out of wood.
Yeah, the door. Well, the door's thick. All right. When you're looking in terms of certain things, in terms of fire
grade, right?
There is a fire grade. It actually goes through, and I forget the testing. It actually goes through this lab where something is put in there and it's exposed to high heat and high flames. And what happens is that when that particular door or brick or whatever material fails at a certain particular time period, it gets what they call a fire rating. So it fails after a certain amount of minutes or hours. The door, which is pretty thick, it has like probably a fire rating of, I don't know, a couple of hours. Why? Well, because to provide us enough protection or enough time to try and figure out a way out.
And a sad way to think about fire ratings and fire grades
Sure.
are the Twin Towers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they were struck on 9/11, 2001, I don't think anybody thought that was going to happen.
No.
But that fire, that intense jet fuel heat, basically melted the steel and the structure failed. And the whole thing came down.
But in terms of this particular fire, which is really interesting, from a lot of standpoints, from a fire standpoint to safety to workers' rights, here was the building itself. This is the outside of it, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory.
Building's still there.
Yep,
Lower
still
Manhattan.
there. Absolutely still there. Now, what did they make? Shirtwaists. This apparently makes the shape of a girl much better. It comes around, gives you that slimming look or whatever the case may be.
I'm out.
Yeah, okay. Well, the important thing here is that it's made of cotton.
Yep.
Very, very flammable. Now, if you look at this entire building right here, when you're talking about a floor, you're going to have a lot of cotton on one particular floor and a lot of workers as well. This is just an example of what this looks like. So before we even get into this going on fire, I mean, is there any hazards?
Scraps all over the floor. Piles of the cotton fabric here. I mean, we're talking way overcrowded. If the exit's over here and you're the person sitting here, we have long tables. So it's not like a classroom that has desks in it. Again, this is before regulations come into place, and that's why we take the kids around the school. And I don't know you, but I point out what's the maximum occupancy.
That's going to be the thing.
Because
if you're a fire marshal's going to look at this and go tickets, because right away this is already above a maximum occupancy in here. Same thing with classrooms as well. We can only have a certain amount of people within a particular classroom, and then in terms of getting out of the building, I can't put desks right over here, because now we have to worry about egress, in other words, exiting. So a lot of hazards here.
And this is like the one major problem, this whole industrial revolution, the rise of corporations and the rise of business, is that whole profits versus people. Because this makes good business.
Yes.
The more people I cram into a room, the more shirtwaists they're going to make for me, the more I'm going to sell. We see probably some sort of overseer, or maybe he's even the owner of here, making sure his workers are doing what they're supposed to do.
Right.
But the more people I can cram into a smaller space, the more they're going to produce, the more money I'm going to make in the long run.
Now, of course, this is a building as well. One other thing that you notice walking around most public buildings, ones that have to conform to fire code, particularly a school, there's no fire extinguishers here. Why? Fire extinguishers cost money. They're more concerned about profits rather than protecting these people. And unless you're required as a business during this particular time period to do something that's going to cost you money, I'm not going to pay for it. How many fire extinguishers do I need to put in here? 8. How much do they cost? I don't know, $10 each. Too much money.
Yeah.
No way. So right away, when you're looking at the interior of this, yes, this is going to be a problem.
And this is a great foreshadowing.
For
the evening of March 25th, 1911.
I mean, I know we've looked at, for example, when we were talking about Pittsburgh, and we look at the steel mills, and we were talking about the smog and everything that you saw in the sky. It's like, hey, well, that's what's going on the outside. Imagine what's going on the inside. So, you know, certain assumptions or conclusions we can draw from this is that, well, if this is what it's looking like, you know, what else? What's there that we can't see? They're working 12-hour days. They're working 7 days a week. What do the bathrooms look like? You know, if they get hurt, what happens? Do they get paid? Does someone say suck it up to them? I mean, there's just there's a lot of other questions that come up just from looking at this particular picture here. This is great.
So then the fire breaks out. We'll get a little bit more into that.
Yep.
You know, how it broke out, why it broke out, but really it's the fire itself and the aftermath of the fire. And it happened right at the end of the day. You know, as businesses all in Lower Manhattan are releasing, people are going out into the streets, and this fire breaks out on the upper level floors, which were occupied by then by the Triangle Shirtwaist Company. I think it was actually the 8th floor where the fire breaks out.
8th or 9th, yeah.
And then it was the 9th and 10th that are going to see most of this destruction that's going to take place.
Now, here's the other thing too. Don't hold me to this, but you're bringing it up. This was on a Saturday when this broke out.
Possibly.
I want to say it's a Saturday. You know,
I just know it was late in the afternoon, like right around closing time.
So you know, when you're talking about whether or not we're true on the weekend, I'm 90% sure this was a Saturday. When you're looking here, the fact that this factory floor is pretty packed on a Saturday late in the evening. Now you're talking. Okay, that tells you something. Workers don't have the weekends off.
Yep.
Are they making overtime would be a certain question that other people would bring up, but
So you can even see here these long rows of tables.
Right.
You know, and the fire breaks out on the 8th floor. It was like a overpacked waste bin that hadn't been emptied.
Yep.
And the assumption is somebody walked by and a cigarette ash, you know, had fallen in there, and a small little fire breaks out. Okay, not a big deal. Or really, at least it shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, typically something like that happens. You run, you grab the fire extinguisher. Well, except there are none. But now, going back, and this room is now littered with tinder. With like stuff that's going to just
dry fabric cotton.
Yes.
That doesn't need much.
And then the nightmare that takes place now, in the rush to the exit and the rush to get out, is really the tragedy that takes place.
Yes.
People rush to the elevator to get out. The elevator stops working.
Yep.
People try to rush down the stairwell becomes overcrowded.
There was even certain doors that were locked.
Certain doors were locked by the owner.
Yes.
And the owner claims it wasn't to keep people in and work, it was to keep union organizers out.
Right.
Yeah.
There was part of that. There was part of the theft, the taking an unauthorized break as well.
Yeah.
And it was just ridiculous.
You know, and now all hell breaks loose in the 9th and 10th floors. Smoke is starting to fill the room. People rush towards the fire escape. There was too many people on the fire escape. The fire escape literally collapsed.
And that gives you an idea too. When you're looking at when fire investigators go and look at certain things, but they look at how the material responded to high heat and intensity. So you have something that's probably made out of either really steel or aluminum. This is going to tell you at certain points how hot it actually got and where is that. So even when we're looking in here, right? When you're talking about the sewing areas, you're not going to have easier access to come around. The fact that these ceilings and the floor here are all just black and charred, that also tells you a lot as an investigator.
Yep. Fire department shows up. The hoses couldn't reach above the 7th floor. Ladders couldn't reach above the 5th floor, if I wasn't mistaken. It was, unfortunately, it takes tragedy to bring about change.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
The legal system is not proactive, they're very reactive, you know, in terms of code as well.
So we learned a lot from this, and literally there were tens of thousands of people watching this take place.
Which makes, this is why I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday. I know I'm gonna get hung up on a silly detail because the sidewalks and streets are packed, and that's why you had such a huge gathering.
And it was also, like I said, I know it was late in the afternoon, right around 5 o'clock,
yes,
so all the businesses were emptying out. So literally the fire escapes. This is like just some of the fire hazards that I had found that were going on here. These fire nets that we see here.
This is crazy.
Literally the first girl jumped out and it broke.
Right.
She was fine, but now no one else could jump out. You see these things like in like old movies.
Yes.
You know, or what's like the Laurel and Hardy shows that they
Tom
used to
and
watch.
Three Stooges.
You know, and like locked doors in the stairwell, the rusty fire escape that collapsed, long wooden tables, not enough water pressure for the fire department. It was just a calamity of errors that leads to the worst fire in New York City history. Absolutely. Until September 11th.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally what winds up happening, and we also saw this in 9/11.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Women began to jump to their death.
Now, when you get an idea here, I know we don't think of ways that we'd want to die. I know in certain situations, when you're a little kid, you talk about what would you rather have happen to you, this or that. But if you look at this room and you're getting an idea of how hot it is, I'm sure all of us have done this at one point. When I was a kid, I was not a really bright child. I doubt to say I'm a bright adult, but here's what happens. You ever have a candle and you're putting your hand over it, and then you're coming down lower and lower and lower, and then finally there's something in your brain that goes, hey, stupid, move your hand away from there, it's hot. You're not even on the flames. Now imagine getting to that point where your hand wants to back away and go like this. Imagine getting to that point and not being able to. Now imagine it's not just a spot on your hand, now it's your entire body, your ears and everything.
Your eyes, your lungs, everything.
And, really, you probably want to jump and risk living.
And that's what happens.
Rather than,
hundreds of girls
to help explain why people
jumped to their death while onlookers sat there in absolute horror. We'll push out an assignment. I'll find that primary source where this one person is describing the scene.
Ugh.
And he's just talking about, like, I couldn't get used to this, like, bundle of clothing hitting and like the sound, the thud of a body hitting the ground.
A lot of the 9/11 footage too.
Yeah,
you would hear that in the background.
Young, mostly immigrant
women.
Women.
Late teens.
Yeah.
Early teens. Yeah.
Just littering the sidewalk. These are bodies.
Right.
And you're at a loss for words here.
It really is.
The aftermath. The only things that didn't melt were the wheels of the sewing machines. So
I mean, you're getting a really good idea, and then having to come and actually
identify
your loved ones here. I mean, this is pretty horrible.
You can see burned faces. There's the one here that I point out to my students, that this girl, she's actually in rigor mortis, and she was found like this in the fire on the ground because she's trying to protect her face.
Do you know what? Actually, that's what I used to think. Right? What happened? That's called the pugilistic pose.
Really?
I took an arson investigation class, because that's what everybody thinks.
Okay.
And I was
learn
totally
something
wrong.
new.
So what happens is that you find certain burn victims where they're like this, and the natural thing is to think this is protective. The most strangest way I can describe it is think of like plastic. If you go and heat up plastic or whatever, it starts to kind of shrink up.
Their bodies
That's pretty much what your body is doing. It's called the pugilistic pose.
That's awful.
And the thing is that the evidence or something that the way I was taught on how that actually takes effect is that the one thing that you actually have live bodies demonstrated being burnt was the Buddhist monks who were protesting in Vietnam. That's what they used to show us.
And I had the unfortunate event of watching when ISIS had burned a man alive.
Right.
You're right.
And that's exactly what the body is doing, which is, I mean, it's just think, it's just like plastic being exposed to height.
Yeah. So now over the course of the next several days, I forget what was turned it, wasn't Madison Square Garden because it wasn't built yet, but it was like an arena.
Yes.
That was literally turned into this makeshift morgue for these people to try to find it. 146 people.
100? Yep. Of course, when we look at this, of course the fire is going to kill a lot of people, but the other thing is that probably the lack of safety protocols that were put in place, extinguishers, locked exits. Another thing that they find is that you don't have sprinkler systems at this particular time period. Probably weren't rehearsing fire drills, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, like every year kids are like, why do we have to do so many fire drills?
We gotta do it 12 times a day.
Because of things like this. And it wasn't this particular fire, it's another fire tragedy, the Coconut Grove tragedy.
Yes.
Where, the doors of a building must open out because of that. That's one as well. They all rushed to the door, but the door opened in and then people got crushed against the door.
That's another thing when you're looking at going into school buildings as well. The doors are gonna open out because you're going outwards. There's gonna be a bar there, you push, it makes it easier. Now, of course, you're looking here, the business owner himself was in these political cartoons. Now, where are you going to see these political cartoons or these photos? You're going to see about it in the newspapers. And people are going to be pretty upset, and they're going to demand change or reform.
And again, I said before that profits versus people. This is supposed to be the owner, and you might not be able to tell in the video. He's got a big dollar sign on the key, and there's dollar signs all over his suit. And was he literally closing the door, holding the girls in? No, but it was that representation of the doors were locked. Whether it was to prevent them from leaving before the day was over, or if it was to keep union organizers out. Either one was for greedy reasons.
Yep.
Either one were for greedy reasons.
Inspectors, and again, this is one of 100.
But as we said, out of tragedy comes change, and we'll get into what changes do start to happen, because this is during the time of the rise of labor unions, and the changes that unions bring to our country. There's a reason why we celebrate them every Labor Day.
And even though you have certain laws and things that are in place, doesn't mean that everybody follows them. I think that Coconut Grove one.
That was in Massachusetts, I think.
Is that the one with the fire, the pyrotechs and the?
No, Coconut Grove was in the 70s.
Okay, so So even though those things are in place, doesn't mean that everybody follows them. And why do they usually not follow them? Profits.
Yep.
Want to increase profits. I'm trying to think. Tragically, these families settled out of court, and I want to say in the neighborhood they received like $120 each family.
Each family.
Roughly around it. Don't hold me to that number.
Which, although that doesn't sound like a lot in 1911,
It wasn't a lot then.
would have been nice
Yeah.
for an immigrant family, but still not nearly
Not
close to
nearly
the
as
cost
much.
of
I mean, because when you look at how much a life is, you ask your parents at home, how much is your life worth? Know all the money in the world, and I'm going to say that the same thing about my kid, and he's going to say the same thing about his kids.
$1.25.
All right, tragedy. All right, on to labor unions, I guess.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, thanks for watching.